How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Z Garage, and this week I am determined to make this the first drive of the Z. So if you watched last week's video, we got really close to getting this thing completely done, ready to go, and then I blew out the slave cylinder. So we have a replacement. I'm gonna go ahead and install that real quick, get the transmission back into the car, and then I've got a new throttle cable right here. I'll show you it, and then I think it's from like a 92 Pathfinder or something. We'll show you how it mounts up. But the last throttle cable I was using was 36 inches, and this one is like 56 or something, so significantly longer and exactly what we need, and it is perfect. So I'm super excited for that. And then we got to bleed the brakes. I've got to switch out a couple hose clamps on some of the coolant lines that are leaking, and then it is ready to start, guys. So I am really excited to go ahead and get this thing running this weekend. So fingers crossed, hope I don't jinx anything, knock on a Z, and we are going to be driving by the end of this video. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. All right, guys, so we're gonna go ahead and jump right into the slave cylinder. And if you can see, I've got the old one here and the new one here. And if we look on the sides, you might be able to tell this is the correct amount of extension for one, and this one is clearly overextended. So I don't know if this is a problem with the adapter kit that we have for the bell housing. You would think realistically you wouldn't be able to overextend if this was, appropriately pushing on the clutch. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is install this just like it currently is, and that hopefully you can see. So when this goes ahead and gets compressed, it squishes down like this. So hopefully we can see a little bit of compression once the transmission is installed. I don't remember looking. I feel like it looked kind of like this before. So we had a little bit of extension. But we're going to go ahead and install this as is currently. If we run into the same issue again where we end up pushing this past where it needs to go, then we're probably going to have to shim this forward a little bit so that it gets closer to the transmission. That is going to be an absolute pain because I'm not, really adept to clutches and throw up bearings and stuff like that. So hopefully it works just as intended. And then in the future, if we still run into this problem again, we will have to shim it. So fingers crossed that that's not going to be our issue. I'm going to go ahead and get this installed. I'm going to go ahead and bleed it while the transmission is out. So I went ahead and disconnected the actual master cylinder, and then we're going to go ahead and put this into the transmission, and we're just going to go ahead and use the vacuum bleeder, and then I'm just going to hand actuate the master cylinder while we're going, so we can bleed this while the transmission is out. It does have a physical stop, if you can see that lip around it right there, so it's not going to overextend if we don't put too much pressure through it. I just want to go ahead and get this done while it's out of the car so that, one, there's not tons of working room when it's up in the car, and two, just so that we can see any issues that may arise with this setup. So fingers crossed that the vacuum bleeding doesn't put any pressure on this, it doesn't force it past that point right there. But we'll go ahead and see. So I'm going to go ahead and tackle this first, and then hopefully everything is feeling good and we can get this back in the car. All right, guys, so I got the transmission back into the car most of the way, and then I was like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and go grab my bore scope real quick and stick it in the bell housing, and let's look at what the bell housing looks like. So this is the slave cylinder. These are the fingers for the clutch, and you can see there's a gap. So the slave cylinder is not touching the clutch. And this means that we are never going to be able to press in the clutch. We're never going to be able to disengage it. It's just spaced wrong. So back behind the actual slave is right here. There's like a ring that helps push it forward. I don't know. I think this kit was made for a Z32, so I don't know if there is a bit of a difference between the clutch height from the back of the bell or from the back of the engine to where it actually typically mates. But we have an issue here, so I need to figure out what this distance is, and then build a spacer that will push this even further out. So transmission's going to come out again. It's not too big of a pain because I'm just going to kind of leave it in the air. I don't have to, really disassemble stuff anymore. But yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to drive it in the next few days here, which is unfortunate. I'll keep this video going probably until next Friday like the last one. So if we can manage to get something done by then and drive it by then, obviously I'll bring you guys along, but this is a problem. This is a big problem, and it is really unfortunate. So now I have to go. I'll contact Jim Wolf Technology. They're the ones who made the kit for the CD09 swap. I'll contact them, see if they have any suggestions or input on this and why it needs to be spaced a little bit differently.
And I might be able to get a piece machined here in my city to go ahead and make this spaced out. It's going to be a little expensive, but we are kind of down to the wire, so we're going to have to start throwing money at problems, unfortunately. So that's where we're at right now. I'm going to go ahead and contact JWT. We'll see if we can get that figured out. I'll start making initial models, and then hopefully we can get contact from them soon if they have a precise measurement that this actually needs to be, because I'm not a clutch specialist. I'm not exactly sure how much we should be squishing this. If it should be all the way, if it should be halfway, whatever. So hopefully we'll be able to get that here soon, and then I will go ahead and finish up the rest of what we need on the car here to actually get it done, you know, like switching out those clamps that I was talking about. And then I realized when I put in my relay box here, I have a relay for the fans. I actually split it from 1 into 2. I don't think I showed that in the wiring video, but I have one relay for each fan, so they each get their own. And then I did a fuel pump. So what I forgot is that the ECU, when it sends signals or when it has a signal output, it actually is a ground signal, and I wired it in as a power signal. So I got to go flip those around in here. It's really going to be pretty quick. I already have 12 volts, switched 12 volts coming in, so I will just extend that lead into those 2 relays, and then they will be grounded from the ECU on the other side. So we're going to go ahead and work on that. I'm finishing up the fuel pump wiring because I'm getting rid of the relay back there because we have it up here. And then we are really, really close. We can still fire the engine up, get it running. You know, obviously it's not going to move anything. I mean, with the, as long as it's in neutral. If it's not in neutral, then it will move something. But we are going to go ahead and be able to get the engine probably fired up here before we actually get to the transmission back together. And I think that's going to be okay because we can go ahead and make sure there's no leaks. You know, not really start working on the tune, but we did move to different coils, so I need to make sure that those are, you know, correct. We moved to a different few other things like the throttle position sensor, intake air temperature is actually the same. But we got a couple of the idle air control. I need to go ahead and set a couple of these things up. So we might actually go ahead and start this without the transmission, just so we can get things going. So I will let you guys know, obviously. I'm going to go ahead and start working on stuff. And yeah, this is a real big bummer, and it's raining outside today, so I can finally use the term when it rains, it pours. So we will go ahead and get something done. Hopefully we make some good progress this week. All right, guys, we've done a couple good things since the last shot there. So you can see right here, this is my new throttle cable. I'll put up on the screen exactly what yours this is for, because I keep saying Pathfinder, but I don't remember exactly what it was. But you can see there's a bolt on top and bottom. Those are M10s, and then they go through into the inside, and I have some nuts on the interior because the sheet metal here is too thin to actually tap, and I could not get a riv nut gun down in there. So it is just bolts and nuts. It has a, I don't know if you guys can see, it has a gasket on it, a rubber gasket, so it does still move. It's not like, you know, perfectly bolted, but this is just the beginning, and then it's a sheath, and then it's held right there. So you don't actually have to hold this super tight. We'll jump over here and kind of look at how this end looks, and I still need to make a new throttle cable bracket, but it's just a long threaded rod, a nut on the front and back, and then actually a rubber stopper. I don't have it threaded far enough to actually stick this on there, so we will need to do that because we don't want this getting stuck underneath this guy here. So that's looking really good. And then I also went ahead and let me show you real quick. All right, here we are at the back of the car. You can see the back's right there. And it might be a little hard to tell, see if I can get you in here, but we installed the Goodrich stainless steel brake lines. The backs are 2 pieces. So one is right here to the caliper, and then the other, you might be able to see it right there. It goes from the body to the trailing arm itself, and then the trailing arm has a hard line, and then it goes into the caliper. So I installed this one, pretty straightforward. I tried to install the other side, but the previous owner rounded off the brake lines, so I'm gonna have to destroy those to get them off. So I will go ahead and do that at a later date. I did like replacing those lines because they were looking a little old, kind of cracked, but I still think they're plenty. They're fine. They're not gonna, you know, explode on me. So I went ahead and bled the brake system. That's all good to go. So I think the only thing I have left to do is a little bit of wiring on that fuel pump. And then we are really, really close to starting this engine. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on that, and then we'll pick up after I'm done. All right, guys, we are so close to getting this thing started and running. I went ahead and finished up all the electrical wiring that I needed to go ahead and update. Everything is going good. I've checked for leaks right now. Everything's looking good. The one thing that I realized is I didn't have my coolant overflow tank here, and you can see it hits our throttle body. So we are going to have to get a different coolant reservoir. We'll go ahead and leave this one, somewhere around here so it's not in the way of the throttle for now. And then obviously plumb it over to our radiator intake right there. But we are looking really, really good. I'm going to go ahead and just put the battery in it and turn the key on, let the fuel system pressurize. We're going to look for fuel leaks first. And then once we're good on fuel leaks, we'll go ahead and disable the fuel pump. And then we will go ahead and turn the car over, build a little bit of oil pressure. I read the manual for this turbo and it says you should put your own oil in first before even cranking the car over, but I don't know if that, I think cranking over would be fine to build oil pressure. We're not going to be spinning it all that much. So we're going to go ahead and build some oil pressure in here, crank the car over, make sure everything is looking really, really good. My battery is kind of bad. It's the original 2017 battery that I have. So we might have to go ahead and get a new battery at some point here, but I think it'll be fine for at least what we're doing today. And then we can go ahead and hop into the ECU, see all of our signals, make sure everything's looking good, kind of set things up the way we need to, and hopefully everything goes really, really well. So I'm excited for this, guys. I'm going to go ahead and try to fit this somewhere kind of out of the way, but around here, and then we'll go ahead and see if we can turn this thing on and pressurize the fuel system. All right, guys. Well, it has been a few days. It's now actually Thursday of this week. So a couple days before, if you guys are watching this on Saturday when it comes out. And I have spent a lot of time and effort this week trying to figure out this transmission and how to make it work properly. So if you guys are interested in this, I'm going to go ahead and do a little spiel about all the measurements and how things properly line up. If not, we are just about to go ahead and jump in this car, throw a battery in it, turn the key, and kind of power up the ECU and start going through it. So if you want to go ahead and see that, skip forward to the next scene. You guys can probably find it pretty easily. And if you want to learn about the transmission, I want to have, just kind of a brief talk about all the things that we need to think about when we're making this transmission work. So the Jim Wolf Technologies kit is made, they say it fits the VG30DE, which is the Z32 engine, and they say this kit also adapts for the KA24 engines. So I thought because it fit the VG30DE that we wouldn't have any issues, and we actually don't. It fits the Z32 bell housing. The Z32 bell housing fits on this engine, so we don't have any issues in that area. But I think where we're coming into issues with not having the appropriate spacer on our throwout bearing is that, at least for the KA24, is that it has a decently large adapter flywheel. And basically what you're adapting for in this situation is you need to adapt from whatever engine you have to whatever transmission you have, which allows for the use of some starter, whether it be the transmission side or an engine side adapter like the starter like the Z31 has, or the transmission side like the Z32 has. You need to go ahead and look out for that, as well as the overall size for the clutch. So when you make adapter flywheels, you need to keep the ring gear in the same spot for the starter, and then you put the clutch face somewhere, I guess, as long as it's where the splines of the input shaft are on the transmission. Now, I believe that when they designed this kit and they designed it to work with the KA24, they were using that adapter flywheel, which is significantly thicker, or at least a good amount thicker than this Z31 flywheel that we are running. So what we're running into here is that the clutch is actually too far forward, forward on the engine. So what's actually happening is if you look at the way that the splines are engaging the input shaft to the clutch, we're actually only engaging about 3/4 of the splines, 3/4 of the depth of the splines on the clutch itself. So the transmission is physically too far backwards, and that's basically pulling the input shaft out. It's pulling the throwout bearing backwards, and that's kind of what's giving us our issues, why everything is going wrong for us. So the easy, quick fix that we're going to go ahead and do here for this build, because I have a week and a half before Branson Z Fest, and I need to get this thing running, is use a spacer. So I went ahead and measured up a few things, and I figured roughly 22 millimeters is what we need for a spacer. So I'm getting this. This is a 3D printed piece that I made just to kind of check fit check and make sure everything was looking good. But I'm going to be making this out of CNC aluminum. Shout out to my friend Daniel for making that piece for me on a short time schedule because we are running out of time here, and I really appreciate him getting it in. I'm going to go ahead and use a spacer. Now, when we use a spacer, what we're doing is we're pushing the throwout bearing forwards, and we're not going to be changing the engagement of the splines on the clutch. We're not going to be changing the placement of the transmission itself. We're only changing the position of the throwout bearing. So that's going to allow us to keep the same flywheel that we currently have. It's going to allow us to keep the same transmission mounting that we currently have because it's not going to be shifting forward. It's not going to change the drive shaft that we already have procured that's already a certain length. Granted, all of this, if you wanted to do this the proper way, so let's go ahead and jump into the proper way of doing this, is that you would actually want to shave the thickness that you need off of the bell housing front end, maybe the back end, maybe you split it between both. You probably wouldn't want to actually change the adapter plate itself, or best case scenario, you would get an adapter or conversion flywheel to push the clutch physically backwards. Any of those things are going to allow you to have a higher engagement of those splines on your shaft, the input shaft of the transmission, and it's going to put the clutch into the appropriate position that it should be sitting in. So that would be the correct way to do it. But like I was mentioning, it causes a lot of things to get messed up. So we would have to change how the transmission is mounted to the car. We would need a longer, although it's only like an 1/8 inch, we need a longer flywheel, or drive shaft. We would need to change just a few things about this that I don't have the time to do. So that's why we're using a spacer, and that's the proper way, is to actually kind of shim it down so that you can actually move the transmission physically forward in the car. So that's kind of the whole background here. There's a few other things that we needed to take into account for this, the throwout bearing. I was going to pick this one up, the broken one, but if you remember when I compressed it earlier in this video, there's still a center sleeve that it rides along. And I'm going to set this down. If we compressed it too far, basically if we pushed the clutch back or the transmission forward, when we compressed that, as it's pushing against the clutch, we still have that shaft sticking out. So if we pushed it too far forward, we could also see that actually interfering with the splines on the clutch itself. So when I took measurements here, I took measurements of the input shaft depth. I took measurements of the actual throwout bearing itself. I took measurements of the mounting face to the top and then to the insides of the clutch and the flywheel, because I needed to get all those measurements to make sure nothing was going to interfere. Because if we sandwiched this all together and something was stuck, we're, one, going to lock it in place so it wouldn't want to spin, and then two, destroy it if we did get it to spin. So there are a lot of things to go ahead and work on here. I think I erred on the cautious side when I used the 22 millimeters for this piece right here. I think that if we need to, we're going to need to shim it forward a little bit more. We might be at the very end of our clutch pedal throw to disengage. But that's going to be okay, because it's better to need to add shims than to have to take material away, because I can't take material away here. I don't have something that can put a nice flat surface on a spacer, but I do have washers and I can go ahead and take it apart. So I think we are going to be in good shape, at least for now. I'm not running too much power through this. We're aiming for about 300 to 350 in its current form for Branson Z Fest. So it is going to be making some good power, but it's not going to be too much power to where I think that the engagement of the splines is going to be a big issue. But that may be something that we need to address in the future, which is going to just be a complicated thing like I mentioned before. So I think that's kind of how this is shaping up, guys. It's obviously not the ideal situation. I would have liked this to just all fit properly, but there's only so much that we can do, and in this very short period of time that we have. So I'm looking forward to getting this transmission back in the car tomorrow, getting that spacer back on it, and making sure everything is looking really, really good. So fingers crossed, guys. I'm really excited. Everything's coming along. There's a lot of challenges, but we've been overcoming them, so looking really, really good. Now let's go ahead and actually put the battery into the car. Hopefully nothing explodes when we connect the positive and negative. That would mean we have a short somewhere, so we'll be watching for that. But let's go ahead and actually get this car turned on so we can start going through the ECU. I want to start testing things like the fans, testing the fuel pump, checking for leaks in either of those systems. I've found so many leaks in the cooling system. I keep looking underneath and I keep seeing more and more drips and replacing the clamps from worm gears to the T-bolt or the fuel injection hose clamps. And then my wastegate was actually leaking, which was interesting. So I tightened up the NPT fitting on there, and we'll see if that goes ahead and fixes it, but it's looking really good. I actually got a new coolant reservoir, nice black aluminum little guy here, so we'll go ahead and find a place to mount this soon. So I'm looking forward to it, guys. Let's go ahead and jump into the car and check out the ECU and make sure everything's looking good. All right, guys, we are here in the car, and you can see I have Tuner Studio up. I've been messing around with it, kind of getting everything working. You can kind of see there's my dash that I have. Miles per hour is not accurate, obviously. And for some reason, my AFR, let's see if I can come over here. My gauge is not lit up for the wideband, so I'll have to go ahead and dig into that because it's obviously not providing any information up there. It's been at 10.10 this whole time. But I've been digging through this, just kind of checking things out. Everything's looking pretty good. My throttle position is showing 115% when it's closed, and then it goes down when I go ahead and put my foot on the gas. So I will need to figure that out. I'm going to go ahead and contact Felix Hamilton at Hamiltuned, because I looked through this a little bit and I could not find any settings for the throttle. So I'm going to go ahead and get his opinion on it. Maybe I wired it wrong, so we'll go and do that. But this is one of the menus that I've been looking at here. So if you go up, if you're using this, use the CAN bus test modules, and then I believe this is this first one, output test mode IO. What you do is you enable test mode, and then these are some of your outputs that you have here. So this one, PP2 idle, this is actually what you're using for our fans. So if I go ahead and turn this on, you can actually hear the fans kick on. All right, well, maybe you can hear that. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but the fans are kicking on, so this is great. I know that they are wired incorrectly. I know that they are working. I know that I'm not blowing any fuses. So I can actually do this with fuel pumps and injectors and spark as well to test all of these. So if I ever need to, I can go ahead and just turn it on in here, and then when I'm done, just disable the test mode and close out of it. So super duper easy and simple to use to test stuff like that. So I'm really, really happy. This is all looking really good. I made a few changes here in the tune just so we have a couple of our new stuff, a couple of our new features. But I think we're looking really, really good. So I think the next step here is to go ahead and turn the fuel system on, check for any leaks, and then I think that we're going to be really, really close to starting this engine. So I'm going to keep working on this, guys, and then we will just do whatever happens next. I'll show you guys in the next shot here. All right, guys. Well, unfortunately, our transmission spacer is delayed a little bit, so I'm not going to be able to get into this week's video. I'm going to go ahead and get it tomorrow, and that's going to be next week's video. But we got a lot of grid work on the Z done. I figured out what was wrong with the throttle position. I had the 5-volt and the ground switched on the wiring for that, so flipped those around, looking all good. So the engine is ready to start next week. The only reason that I haven't done that yet is because I need to actually rewire the fuel pump relay. I think I mentioned it earlier, but I actually rewired both of the fan relays instead of the fuel pump relay as well. So I need to go ahead and do that again. So I still need to go ahead and do that. But next week is going to be a big one. We're going to have the first start. We're probably going to have the first drive. It's going to look really, really good. We're working on the wrap right now. I don't know if you guys can see this up here. So we're wrapping the car currently. That's just a whole process. I'm actually really enjoying wrapping. It's an arduous process, but it's actually super satisfying. So I'm not going to make a video on how to do it because this is my first time wrapping something, and it's, you know, coming out pretty mid. But it is really fun. I got 3M wrap, which is what everybody recommends to, you know, get name brand stuff. And it's turning out really good. So I'm super excited. So next week, guys, really big episode. The week after that, I don't know when the video is going to come out for you. So next week is the Friday before Branson Z Fest. I'm going to be leaving on Tuesday because it starts on Wednesday. So I'm going to be filming stuff all next weekend as well because I guarantee I'm not going to be done by then. So by the time you see next week's video, I'm still going to have a little bit more work to do before Branson Z Fest, which means that after that, I don't know exactly when I'm going to film and or release what's kind of leading up to leaving for Branson. I'm thinking I might be able to do like a Friday release, like an early Friday, and then summing up kind of all of Branson, or at least the drive to Branson on that Saturday. It ends on Sunday, so I'm not going to be able to get the whole thing in it. But I'm just trying to say that the videos are going to be a little bit weird
coming up in the next few weeks, just because I'm not gonna have tons of time to film and then edit. Especially with my laptop, it's not super powerful, so it's gonna take a long time for it to process these videos. So I'll be doing as much as I can, guys. Follow my other channel, the Z Garage Adventures. I'll go ahead and link it in the description because I will be posting stuff on that for like when I do drives, when I do cruises. I don't know when exactly that's going to happen, but it's going to be a very minimal amount of editing, so I might just be able to upload the raw video footage, and you guys will be able to just tune into that and kind of see how it's going. And I'll try to make posts somewhere, I don't know. I don't really use Instagram all that much. You guys, if you follow me, you know that I don't really post on there, so I will try to be doing more social media on there for Branson Z Fest, but I'm just saying, I'm going to be making tons of content for that, so keep your eyes peeled, and I'll obviously let you know when I make those videos. So thanks again for watching, guys. I always appreciate the support, and hopefully next week all this goes really well, because we're getting really close here, and I really want to go to Branson with a working car and not working car, because I don't want to be able to go. So fingers crossed, guys. Knock on Z again. I know I did that, I think, at the beginning of this video, and then we had transmission issues, so double knock on the Z for double luck, and I'll see you guys next time.